All right, let's dive right into this explainer and kick off a complete system upgrade. Whether we're talking about a sudden AI rollout that literally flips your industry upside down overnight, or just a massive, unexpected shift in market dynamics, today we are completely reframing how we handle the rapid, relentless pace of change in our professional lives. We're going to stop looking at change as this chaotic weather event we just have to bunker down and endure, and start treating it as hard, actionable data we can actually use to our advantage. So I want you to ask yourself this critical question right off the bat. It's time for a highly honest self-audit of your own professional operating system. When your industry shifts, when a massive new piece of tech totally disrupts your daily workflow, are you just bracing for impact, holding your breath, and hoping your Wi-Fi survives the storm? Or do you actually have a deliberate system in place to actively engineer that disruption into your next big leap forward? Because let's be real, simply hanging on for dear life, that's no longer a viable career strategy. We usually think of adaptability as this soft skill, right? Something totally abstract that you're either naturally born with or you aren't. But look at the framing here. It is an engineered capacity. It's a hard mechanical mechanism for growth. It means building an internal architecture that transcends just basic survival and actively, systematically converts that disruption into continuous learning. It is a machine you build, maintain, and execute. And here is the exact blueprint we'll be using to upgrade your internal architecture today. 1. The reality of disruption. 2. Diagnosing your operating system. 3. The 4 core pillars. 4. Mindset powers action. And finally, number 5, the execution engine. Let's get right into it. Section 1. The reality of disruption, and specifically a shrinking half-life. We need to start right at the root of the problem and understand exactly why our old mental hardware just doesn't cut it anymore in the modern professional landscape. As you can clearly see illustrated here, if you rely entirely on what you already know, you're in trouble. The half-life of professional skills is rapidly, almost scary fast, shrinking. Think about a skill you learned just 5 years ago. Maybe it was a specific software tool or a best practice for marketing. If you lean entirely on that static, past knowledge, your system experiences what we call static relevance decline. Basically, you slowly become obsolete. To combat this, you have to actively inject continuous learning interventions into your routine just to maintain your operational relevance. In today's economy, standing still literally means you're moving backward. Section 2. Diagnosing your operating system. Survival versus engineered adaptability. With that reality check out of the way, let's see exactly where your current mindset actually falls on the spectrum. So, the absolutely crucial point here is contrasting the rigid panic of survival mode with the fluid, opportunistic nature of the adaptability engine. Survival mode sees a changing project scope, or even just a sudden software update, as a direct personal threat, and it just throws its hands up in panic. It relies heavily on static past credentials and clings to fixed expectations. Honestly, it's incredibly fragile. The adaptability engine, on the other hand, it processes that exact same change as an opportunity. It activates grounded mindfulness instead of panic and relies on constantly evolving methods and fluid parameters. Take a quick second to really ask yourself, which system is currently running in your head? Moving right along to Section 3, the 4 core pillars of your internal architecture. Now, if you found yourself leaning a bit heavily towards survival mode on that last slide, don't worry about it. To build your adaptability engine, we just need to install 4 specific mechanical pillars. A stable operating system requires balance above all else. Notice how these 4 pillars map out. We balance our internal mindset, which consists of a growth mindset and resilience, with our external actions, which are continuous learning and flexibility. You absolutely need both the internal capacity to absorb the shock of a terrible day and the external drive to seek out new data for tomorrow. Let's look a bit closer at how each of these pillars actually functions in the real world. Look at this incredible mechanism for Pillar 2. Imagine an unplanned setback, like suddenly losing a major client or having a massive project canceled at the last minute, as a jagged, completely useless rock entering your system. Instead of letting it crash the gears and totally ruin your week, you run it through a growth mindset filter. The system actively slices that perceived threat into neat, highly actionable cubes of extracted learning data. What went wrong? What can we do better next time? The architecture literally transforms a threat into a vital resource just by changing the processing filter. How cool is that? Next up is algorithmic flexibility. Notice how the gears shift and the pathways wildly diverge around the obstacle, but the arrows stay entirely, stubbornly locked on the final target. Flexibility is not about just abandoning your goals because things got a little hard. If your budget gets slashed in half, you don't just give up on the project. No, you rapidly rotate your methods, your plans, and your expectations. You maintain your forward momentum by fundamentally changing how you get there, while never losing sight of where you are going. And of course, when things really do go off the rails, we rely heavily on Pillar 4, resilience. Notice the trajectory here. Resilience acts as your system's mental tenacity to absorb the sheer, jarring shock of adversity. But here's the kicker. Just returning to your old baseline isn't enough in a dynamic environment. That mental tenacity activates right at the point of adversity and actually propels you to a growth stabilization point that is higher and stronger than your original baseline. You don't just bounce back, you bounce forward. Section 4. Mindset powers action. Connecting your internal state to your external output. All right, we've successfully installed the pillars. Now let's wire this whole thing together and see exactly how these internal mindsets power your external behaviors out there in the real world. Let's see how this builds into a complete functioning circuit. Your internal power sources directly connect to your external action actuators. Resilience literally acts as the shock absorber, giving you the safety to step outside your comfort zone without fear of breaking. Continuous learning dictates the exact frequency and strength of your information radar. Flexibility requires the stabilizing dampener of mindfulness, so you don't just spin completely out of control when things change. In a growth mindset, well, that's the literal fuel required to actively go out and seek constructive feedback. It is a perfectly aligned machine. Finally, Section 5, the execution engine, otherwise known as the infinite feedback loop. The architecture is built. The wiring is fully connected. It's time to finally turn the machine on and examine this engine in motion. Now, activating this engine isn't just a simple one-and-done deal. It requires a continuous, highly deliberate sequence of these 4 actionable steps to constantly calibrate your response to the rapidly shifting environment around you. Let's break down exactly what each of these steps demands of you. Step 1 demands that you physically rewire your brain's operational baseline. Look at the progression here, from the comfort zone pushing through the fear and learning zones, all the way out into the growth zone. By actively venturing out, say volunteering to lead a project using a complex tool you've never even touched before, you're actively using neuroplasticity to permanently expand your boundaries. You're literally stretching the parameters of your own operating system so you can seamlessly handle way more in the future. For Step 2, your newly proactive system needs an active radar. Because, let's face it, you cannot adapt to what you can't see coming. You need a constant, sweeping scan for industry trends and technological advancements. And this isn't just some abstract concept. This could literally mean setting up specific industry news alerts on your phone or strictly blocking out 15 minutes every single Friday morning to read up on emerging tech in your specific sector. The entire goal is to anticipate those necessary adjustments long before the disruption forces your hand. Slowing things down for Step 3, we have a vital safety mechanism. Look at the chaotic spinning represented here. That is system panic from a sudden, jarring environmental shift. It's that frantic rushing, the tight chest, the completely scattered thoughts. Mindfulness is the highly functional dampener that stops that erratic spinning in its tracks. It physically slows the gears down. It aligns the gyroscopes, granting you grounded assessment, sharp clarity, and deliberate intent. Without taking this crucial pause to assess, the engine will literally just shake itself apart. Finally, Step 4. You have to calibrate. You use a continuous stream of external diagnostics, which is a fancy way of saying constructive feedback, to fine-tune your approach. Think of it like a precision caliper taking in active requests for criticism. In the real world, this means sitting down with a trusted colleague and explicitly asking for a brutally honest postmortem on a failed pitch. Feedback is the pure, unfiltered diagnostic data your engine absolutely needs to run efficiently and output a seriously upgraded professional approach. When you zoom out and look at the big picture, you see how this perfectly builds into an infinite feedback loop. Practical adaptability is never truly finished. Venturing outward demands new data, which necessitates a grounded focus, which then demands external calibration, which in turn pushes you right back out of your comfort zone significantly stronger than you were before. It's a continuous, incredibly beautiful loop of constant system calibration. So the ultimate takeaway here is this. With these gears consistently in motion, you become virtually untouchable in your career. Disruption is absolutely 100% guaranteed in today's world. The market is going to change, the tools are going to evolve, and the rules will constantly rewrite themselves. But equipped with this rigorously maintained operating system, you no longer merely survive those changes. You actively, deliberately engineer them into your own continuous, unstoppable growth. I really want to leave you with this final provocative thought. Take a hard look at your own internal architecture today. The next massive wave of disruption isn't a matter of if, it's a matter of when. When it hits your industry, when it directly, unavoidably impacts your daily career, will your system crash in fragile survival mode? Or have you done the work to build the engine required to recalibrate, absorb the shock, and bounce forward? The choice and the engineering is entirely up to you.